basic shapes are the circle, the square, and the triangle. The basic shapes extrapolated into 3 dimensions are the sphere, prism, cylinder, cone, and pyramid. Let's look at some objects and try to see the basic shapes in them. Then let's draw the basic shapes and pull the objects we see out of the basic shapes we've sketched. I'll talk through the process for this exercise. I want you to find at least one object representing each basic 3-dimensional shape for your drawings. So this exercise may involve 5 drawings, or it may not. For example, one of the drawings I will complete for this exercise is an ice cream cone. This involves the shape of a cone and a sphere. So I'm knocking out 2 of the 5 basic shapes with one drawing. I also want you to draw half your images from looking at things you see in front of you, meaning the object is there in real life, and you have to draw it while observing it. But for half of these drawings, I want you to look at photographs. So I've included all the photographs I used. That way you can use the same ones if you want. I got the photos from a website called Pexels.com, and it's one of several sources I'll reference as things you can use to help us as we learn to draw. I'm going to draw a chair for my prism, a French press for my cylinder, a building for my pyramid, though this will also use some prisms as well. To complete this lesson, I will execute 4 drawings. You may do 5 or 3, but don't draw fewer than that. Part of the goal is to draw a lot. Before I get started, I want to discuss a quick idea with you about value. Like the last image, I'm trying to see value as I draw. It makes it easier to depict the object and make the object feel 3-dimensional. However, in this set of drawings, I will purposefully attack the drawings with lines depicting my values. I'll show you some alternate techniques later in the course that will allow your drawings to look more photorealistic, but for now I'm going to confine the marks I make to lines. For my first drawing, I will draw a chair. In order to do this really well, I need to know something about perspective, and we'll get to that in a future lesson. For now, just see that I drew a prism, sort of an elongated cube. Then I gradually found the chair inside the prism. I hope you notice that in the initial stages of my drawing, I'm drawing lightly and kind of indecisively. I'm trying to find the form before I commit to finished lines. It's only after I can clearly see the object in my sketch that I begin to draw finished lines. And that's the difference between drawing and sketching, at least as far as how I'm going to use those terms while teaching. For our purposes, a sketch is a loose underdrawing one does before committing to finished marks. For my next drawing, I'll explore a cylinder. Actually, the photo I've referenced has 2 cylinders. There's also a small coffee cup. One of the best ways to make your images more interesting to the viewer is to repeat elements of your drawing but change something in the repetition. In this case, I have 2 cylinders, but they're different sizes and proportions. That is a great example of repetition and contrast. My third drawing is an example of drawing a pyramid, so check that out. But I also want to use this one to discuss another really easy way to make your drawings look interesting to a viewer. You want to set it up so that the different parts of the drawing in depth have different overall values. That way the viewer can clearly see the foreground, midground, and background. In this case, my foreground is the building, which I've depicted as having an overall mid value. My midground is the land, the hill the building sits on, which I've depicted as very dark. In the far background, the sky is very light, separating foreground, midground, and background. Using values like this really helps the viewer see the depth quickly and clearly. My final drawing will show the sphere and cone shapes. For fun, I'm going to add the element of drawing the hand holding the cone, but in order to do that well, I need to know something about anatomy, which we'll cover in a future lesson. My cone is here, and my sphere is here. As usual, I try to see the basic shapes first, then use elements in the form to help me discover landmarks that make it easier to break down what I should draw. For instance, I'm noting that the chocolate part of the cone is approximately the same height as the ice cream above the cone, and that length is close to the same length as the pinky holding the ice cream. Heck, the other 3 fingers are about the same length. So is the space between the palm and the cone before the watch and the heel of the thumb. This measurement I'm using around the object is a little too long for the width of the cone at the top, but it's just about right for the dividing line created by the upper third of the ice cream scooped on top. The rendering technique I'm using here may be off-putting to some of you. It's a concept called drawing cross contours. It's a standard technique when drawing with ink, and one of the things I do a lot is develop my sketches with pencil, then draw over that, creating finished lines with ink. As a result, I often draw with a pencil the same way I know I will eventually draw with ink. In a future lesson, I'll show you how to get more painterly realistic look with pencils, but for now, I'm just focused on this idea of finding forms by finding basic shapes in a form, then gradually extrapolating more complex nuances in my sketch before committing to final marks. And that is what I want you to experience. You will know your drawings are successful at this stage if you patiently sketched your forms and really saw the object you tried to draw before you committed to your final marks.